Let's give it up one more time to Dr. Rania. We need about 1,000 more Dr. Ranias. And so for all of you, for all of you who are, high school age or in college, I need some major changes because this is an extremely important topic to me. You're probably wondering to yourself, okay, so this is a whole topic about mental health. Why is Sister Linda here? We know she's an activist. This doesn't kind of make sense, so I came here because I'm really curious. And, I am not a mental health specialist, but after the horrific attacks of 9/11 that you all know happened, many of you were not born, some of you were very young when it happened, we had absolutely zero Arabic-speaking mental health professionals in the New York City area. And so many of us had to go through training in order to be able to provide services to our community, and I was one of those people. And so for 6 years, many people don't know this, I worked at a hospital in New York City called Lutheran Medical Center, and I was providing family counseling as someone who did not have a degree in mental health services. That's the need is there. But what I'm really here to talk to you all about is I'm just gonna be real, and I'm gonna be personal. And I'm gonna say also, if Dr. Rania thought she was telling you, things that came off maybe controversial or maybe made you uncomfortable. And that's my job in the Muslim community. I'm going to make you uncomfortable because people don't change, communities don't change, nothing changes unless you are uncomfortable. So when you're sleeping at night and you're in the right exact position, you don't move from that position because you are comfortable. If you're sitting on a chair right now and you feel comfortable, you don't move when you're comfortable. But if wherever you are is uncomfortable, it makes you move, it makes you shift. And that's what we have to do around this issue of mental health services. Sisters and brothers, we go through so much pressure in the world that we live in today. Many of us are children of immigrants, grandchildren of immigrants, and believe it or not, I'm almost gonna be 42 years old. You know what I sit up and think about sometimes? I think about, did I make my parents' journey from living under a military occupation in Palestine, am I worth it? Did I make that journey worth it for them? Am I enough for my parents? We have the pressures of school. Our parents came, some of them don't have the same level of education as we do, didn't have the same opportunities that we do. And we every day are struggling. We want to do good. We want to make our parents proud. We want to have more and show them that we could do more than they could and try to honor them for all the sacrifices that they have made for us. We have an economy where we can barely afford the places that we live sometimes, where we're trying to make it. Some of us Allah has blessed and others Allah has not blessed in the same ways from this perspective. So there are people in our communities that are literally living paycheck to paycheck, maybe even sometimes not having dinner at the table to feed their children. Then we live in a community where our brothers and sisters in places like Syria and Yemen and others are coming here as refugees. Some people who Allah had blessed so much, and in 1 minute, it's gone. Then they come here to have to hustle and struggle. The same struggles many of us experience, but times 10. Sometimes I think about myself as an activist in the Muslim community. Sometimes I'm not Muslim enough for people. Sometimes I'm too Muslim for some people. Sometimes I'm too Palestinian for some people. Sometimes I'm not Palestinian enough for other people. Sisters and brothers, the criticism, that's what we do really good at, criticism in the Muslim community. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Wow. Everybody is a perfectionist in the Muslim community. Everybody knows everything. And so a lot of times, even in whether you're an MSA leader, whether you're trying to organize in your community, whether you're affiliated with an organization, the people sitting down doing nothing have everything to say about what you're doing. That's the story of Linda Sarsour's life in the Muslim American community. I say, listen, if you got a better way, show me the way, and I'll be with you over here. We, sisters and brothers, are also putting a lot of pressure on each other, but we also without the context of mental health. So for example, sometimes you're feeling sad. I feel sad all the time. Sometimes I'm trying to figure out what is the thing that is making me sad? What's the thing that happened around me I don't know why I'm sad. And then your parents see you and you're like sleeping in, or you're sleeping too much, or you don't have a lot of motivation. And then your parents start telling you, look at you, you have everything. You have a house, I feed you, You have nice clothes. I let you go to your friend's house. You have everything. How could you be sad? How could you not have motivation? How could you not be doing well in school? All this that I did for you, and look at you, you could only get a B plus. I put you in college to get A plus, not B plus. This is what our parents do. And I'm saying that with all the love that I have in my heart for parents, because I am a parent too. I have a 22-year-old son, a 21-year-old daughter, and a 17-year-old daughter. One of the things that I decided in my life, what I decided based on my own experiences, is I was not going to put that kind of pressure on my children. I don't tell my kids, you better get an A plus. I tell my kids, do the best that you can. That's it. Do the best that you can. Do the best that you can. I don't tell my kids I feed you and I house you and I clothe you. Guess what? My kids didn't ask to be here. And for the parents in the room, it is your responsibility to feed your kids and make sure that they have everything that they need. These types of conversations is what take our kids and make that relationship that we have and that gap between us farther and farther away. Our children didn't ask to be born. It is your responsibility to ensure they have. And it's also your responsibility as parents to say to the kids, how are you doing? Imagine how simple, sisters and brothers, that is. Every once in a while to be at a dinner table with your child or see your kid watching some television and say, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? Just having we're always about, tomorrow you got to go to this, tomorrow's halakah, on Friday, uncle and auntie so-and-so is coming to the house, clean your room, go do this. This is not going to work. Of course, the young people have a responsibility to respect their parents, to do the things that they know they're responsible for, taking care of their own headquarters and where they are, and all these basic things. But we are, as parents, have to understand that we live in a country that every day tells our kids, you don't belong here. That tells our kids, you are not American enough. Sometimes they go into the Muslim community tells them they're not Muslim enough. This sister's hijab is not right, this one doesn't wear hijab, this one's pants is too tight, this one's shirt is... This is what we do in the Muslim community. We have to find a way, sisters and brothers, that everything we oppose on the outside of our community, we can't be practicing in the Muslim community. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. If your child comes to you and says, Baba, I know that you are an engineer, and I love you for being an engineer, and you are the best engineer in the world, but I want to be a news broadcaster. Baba, I want to be a journalist. I want to tell Muslim stories. Allowing our children to explore a world and allow them to be who it is they want to be. And oftentimes when you hear a lot of these stories, and you know many of these stories, one of the biggest concerns, that's something else that we're going to talk about next year, there's an opioid crisis in our community. How many people here know somebody that died of an overdose of pills somewhere in this country? I know too many to count here. In New York, in Dearborn, in Chicago, mostly young men from between ages 16 to 24. Why do you think a young man who has his whole future ahead of him, has everything, has every opportunity available to them, why would they think to themselves, this is the way that I want to go? You know why? Because when people are on opioids, it numbs them on the inside. It takes you out of the reality of the world and the stresses that we have to experience every day. Why are you 25 and not married? Why is sister so-and-so now on her 3rd master's degree? She doesn't have a husband. When Allah wants to give them nasib and give them a husband, that nasib comes. It doesn't come from you. That's not how the world works, sisters and brothers. And so oftentimes I say to people, we got to get back to our Islamic practices. Then we go to the masajid and we go into different spaces, and you hear people say, oh, Allah is the most compassionate, right? Allah is the most merciful. Do we say that or not? Is that not true? Are these not part of the 99 names of our beloved Lord? Sisters and brothers, how could you say Allah is the most merciful? And Allah is the most kind? And Allah is the most compassionate? And then you are not merciful, and you are not compassionate, and you are not kind. How does that make sense? In the Muslim community, we do a lot of preaching that we don't practice. And then we say, where are the kids in the masjid? Imams tell me that, Sister Linda, come over here. Where are the women? Why there's not a lot of women that come to the masjid? Oh, Sister Linda, wallahi, we have to think about programs because we need young people in the masjid. It's not about programs. It's about, do you see these young people? Are you speaking to them about things that are relevant to them? I go to the masjid, the sheikh is like, il-mawadda wal-rahma, and telling me about marriage and stuff. The kids, you want the 16-year-olds? That's not what they want to hear. We got that. That mawadda and rahma khutbah needs to be retired. We get it. It's great. It's the easiest one to remember. We got to move on from that. Our kids are living in a real world full of racism, of bigotry, women who are experiencing sexism inside and outside of our Muslim community. We are living in a world where we are in a global pandemic, where people have been downsized from their companies, people have lost jobs, people went from being part of their college campus with their friends to doing Zooms in their bedrooms in their pajamas. The world has changed. And the thing about our Muslim communities, we have to evolve with the times. And if we want to stay connected to somebody, you got to be relevant to those folks, right? So whether you're trying to bring women in the masjid, you want the women in the masjid, how about you let us come in through the same door and not make me go around the garbage cans to get to the masjid? How about that? How about take me out of the basement? How about that? Guess what? I'll go to your masjid. If your masjid doesn't make me sit in the basement and allows me to be in the musalla where I don't have to watch an imam on a television because I could just do that at home, that makes me feel respected. That tells me that this is a mosque that sees all of me, that respects and values my presence. And so oftentimes I'm walking around and I'm wondering to myself, am I valued? Does somebody see me? And that's the question that a lot of our young people ask, young women, older women in our community. Do you see me? Do you see my value? Another thing, I'm gonna, just because about the masjid thing, because this really bothers me, and I just want to put it on the record just in case the imam watches this. This is for the imams. You go to Taraweeh in Ramadan, or the Friday prayer. You're a mom. You should have access to the house of God too. So what does the imam do? He starts yelling and screaming on the mic, talk about leave your kids at home, don't bring the kids. You can't leave your kids at home, stay in the house. What? I love when the day that those imams meet their Lord, and the Lord says, why did those women leave the mosque? And he says, oh yeah, about that. What I meant to say was, you know, we have a responsibility in our community to, and I hope through the training that Dr. Rania will do and her team, is to really, this idea of belonging. Some mental health, some of it is chemical imbalance. It's something that you can't do nothing about, and I want to be clear about that, because it's actually a medical diagnosis. Sometimes it's also just sense of belonging, sense of being valued in its space, sense of somebody just saying, you know, I see the sister and I see her struggle and I see what she's trying to do. You know, my daughter today, my sister actually has my phone in the back. My daughter today sent me her grades. She's in her 4th year of college. And she's like, this is my transcript or whatever. You know, and I'm running around and hustling, and I stopped, I looked at my phone, and I looked at my daughter's grade. She had all A's, 1 B. And I said, I am so proud of you. No questions asked. I don't want to know about the details. I am so proud of you. The one thing that I have noticed, especially because I work with a lot of young people in the Muslim community, you know, that they tell me sometimes, and I know that the parents, and I just want to be clear, your parents love you, right? And they care about you, and they want the best for you. But we also, some of us come from this is not Islamic, this is from the cultures that we come from. So let's make a distinction here. South Asian, Arab, West Africans, East Africans, you're all in it too. Let's be clear, because your parents be hard too, let me tell you. We don't do the basic, simple things like, I'm proud of you. Mama, I love you. Ask yourself this question. How many times in the last week have you actually told your child, I love you? And it could be in your own language. Don't make, however you say it. You know, I've actually done this with parents, and parents will tell me I've done sister halakas. And a sister one time told me, and she was crying the whole time. And she says, Sister Linda, I don't remember the last time. She has 5 daughters. She said, I don't remember the last time that I actually verbally told my daughters that I love them. We cook for our kids. We iron their clothes. We clean for them. We give them everything that they want. We give them money. We take them to the doctor. We make sure they have health care and health insurance. And those are all acts of love. That's love. But sometimes your child just wants you to say, I love you. That's it. It's very important, sisters and brothers. I'm telling you, when that sister told me that I can't remember the last time I told my kids that I love them, my heart was broken for her. Because it actually feels good when you tell your child that you love them and then your child has to verbalize to you that they love you too. That brings you closer together. So let's just take that with us and go. I'm going to say to you all that we've all also experienced loss, and I know that you had a different session earlier today when you talked about this. This past couple of weeks ago was the 1-year anniversary of 3 people that I love very much that died. One of them was a young man named Hamza Negdi from Louisville, Kentucky. He was a young boy, Egyptian Muslim boy, who was an organizer. And he was organizing, many of you know I moved to Louisville, Kentucky for 4 months last year to organize on the case of Breonna Taylor, who was murdered by the Louisville Metro Police Department. And when I got there and I started organizing, everybody was black except me. But then I found another one. And he was a young Egyptian boy, and his name was Hamza, but everybody in the square knew him as Travis. So everyone was like, Travis, Travis, Travis. But us, especially Arab, I know an Arab when I see one. There's like a thing. And so I went up to him one day, and I was like, oh, hey, how you doing, whatever. We kind of introduced myself to him, and he finally told me, he said, Sister Linda, he said, Travis is not my real name. My real name is Hamza, and his name is Hamza Negdi, and he's an Egyptian Muslim boy. This is a boy, sisters and brothers, who many years ago went to foster care. His father was physically abusive to his mother. And then circumstances led the city to take the children from their parents. And so this child spent his pretty much entire, from when he was a little boy, when he used to go to I have pictures of him when he used to go to the masjid as a little boy. And then he went and became a child of the system, in the foster care system. And when he was 18 years old, he aged out of the foster care system and he just went into the street. They just say, okay, 18 years old is done from here, put him out into the street. And so around the Breonna Taylor stuff, he found a lot of these kids who were aging out of foster care, found kind of like a family in what they call Breonna Square, which is a park. And all these older women would cook in the park, and all these kids who aged out of foster care were in the park. Me and Hamza connected immediately. I was Arab American, he was Arab American. I was the organizer, he was an organizer. We both organized in the Black Lives Matter movement, and we got really, really close. And especially because I knew his father's actually in prison today. And he was shot and killed in Louisville, Kentucky. And that's another thing. Sisters and brothers, we don't know. I could walk out of here today. Allahu a'lam. Allah decides when we go. No one else gets to decide for you when your last day on this earth. Allah decided that was going to be Hamza's last day, and he was shot and killed in a carjacking. I was devastated because this kid had so much promise, and he would have still text messages between me and him where he kept telling me, nobody ever saw me. I didn't think anybody even knew that I was in the square. And it was only because I would call him and say, how are you doing? Did you eat today? What's going on? Come to the house, because we had rented a house. And because he was in foster care, going from house to house and house to house and system to system, finally he found someone that was like, I see you. Then many of you know this great man who is a big proponent of mental health services. He was actually a champion in New York at Columbia. And he was an OBGYN doctor, Dr. Ahmed Jabir. Dr. Ahmed Jabir was the founder of the Arab American Association of New York, where many of you know I spent 15 years as executive director. He passed away. December 10th was his 1-year anniversary. Sisters and brothers, I was devastated. He was like a father to me. He was my mentor. He was someone that, as a Muslim woman in the community, when everybody else was telling me I was too loud, I was too, putting my hands in everything, not minding my business, which is what they used to say about me 21 years ago when I started organizing. They still say I don't mind my business today, but they got a little bit better, at voicing that out loud. He was like, absolutely not. This is our leader, and gave me those platforms. And I say to you, if you are, and there are some in the room, if you are in a place of leadership, especially our brothers, giving space to sisters is really important. So I lost someone who really is the reason why I am who I am today. and Allah yirhameh and yirham Travis, AKA Hamza. I also lost my cousin. My cousin's 34 years old, father of 2. In 3 weeks, I lost Hamza, I lost my first cousin, his name is Muhammad, and then I lost Dr. Jabir. Sisters and brothers, I didn't want to get out the bed. I said, you know what, that's it. I done my part. I can't move. I can't even work. I don't have no motivation. Sometimes we need to take a break. Sometimes you have to say, I'm just gonna walk away for a little bit. And then you feel pressure and say, if I walk away, then what happens to this and what happens to that and what happens to that? And moms do that all the time. Who's gonna cook? Who's gonna do the laundry? This is the kind of community we have to build where a mom can say, you know what, I got it. Because my sister-in-law is gonna come do the laundry. And then my daughter is gonna do the cooking. We need to build that sense of community even when inside of the family. And to share with you even just deeper than that, I went through a lot of grief in the last few weeks. And many of you have probably noticed that my demeanor is just a lot more, a little more dark, I guess you can say. Sisters and brothers, these past 5 years have been the darkest years of my life, literally. I've experienced severe anxiety and panic attacks to the point where I've been hospitalized. I've experienced severe depression. You all know, I've been through a lot. Zionists, right-wing Zionists, Islamophobes, the son of the president of the United States. I mean, I was getting it from everywhere. I would wake up in the morning and I would feel like it was me versus the whole world. And to be honest with you, yes, did I have some people in the Muslim community who supported me? Absolutely. But did I feel like my community had my back? When people are threatening to kill me, kill my children, I had to pay for my own security. I have to make sure that my family's safe because they didn't ask for me. And so there were times in the Muslim community where I was like, do these people see me? Am I valued? Is what I'm doing even something that means something to somebody? And I'm not saying that that's the truth. I'm saying that that was what my mind was telling me. So here I am, isolated, feeling like I'm in a corner all by myself and just asking myself all these questions out loud. Am I alone? Am I doing this alone? And even the book that I wrote, Sisters and Brothers, I'm going to end with this, and I'm going to say this to all of you. Sister Linda is not a lady that got time to write books. I don't have time to write a book. You know why I wrote a book? For 2 reasons. Number one, I was worried that one day I was going to get assassinated, and the only legacy that I have is all the headlines that you've all read about me online. All the bad things that the Islamophobes said about me, that someone was going to carry my story without me, and I was like, that absolutely was not going to happen. So if that means it was going to take me 3 years to write a book, I was going to write that book to make sure that at least if I was no longer here on this earth, that my great-grandchildren were going to have a story that is of resilience, of pride, and to remind them that I, their great-grandmother, was unapologetically Muslim and that I fought for our community with every single thing that I had. And that was the first reason. The second reason I wrote that book, I was working through trauma. I had to write it down. I had to also remind myself where I came from. All of us got a story, and my book was an opportunity to say, I am a proud daughter of Palestinian immigrants. I also struggled as a daughter who was the oldest of 7 children. I was someone who also had all the pressures of the world. I was like my parents' guinea pig. I was the one that was supposed to do all the things right. I had to get married when I was 17. I had to bring the first grandbabies. I had to go to school. I had to be the role model for people in my family. I had to do all the things. And that was my life. My life was living for everybody else. And my activism life is me living for myself, doing the things that are purposeful to me. But that also came with grave consequences. And that put me, and it made me experience a lot of trauma. Many of you who haven't read my book, I was in a car accident in 2005 where my mentor died in the car accident in a car that I was driving. I never told anybody about that. Only the people in our community who knew me, like in Brooklyn, my family, my immediate, nobody knew. I went through trauma. I never went to to therapy because that wasn't something that was encouraged. That wasn't something that I had access to in our Muslim community. So here I was, I watched a woman many people in this room know who literally died right before my very eyes. And I was the driver of that car. Do you not think that for years I lived with guilt after that? That I left a woman who was already a single mother and left her son without his mother? That's what I lived with. So we all come with experiences that we don't feel comfortable sharing. That I never even shared the feelings I had with the people that were closest to me. And so this book was an opportunity for me to work through my own trauma, to share stories of when I felt and experienced this kind of trauma. And so what I hope happens when you read this book, it's not about the book. I already got paid to read the book, just so we're all clear. So just don't think that you're buying a book and that I'm making money off of it. I had to buy these books myself to bring to Mass ICNA. This is a story that resonates with you, especially young Muslim women in our community, daughters of immigrants, granddaughters of immigrants, the pressures of the world and how I work through them, how to build power in our Muslim community with the experiences that we have. So I hope that you join me. My sister's selling the book outside. And I could sign your book for you, but I want you to read it, and then I want you to gift it to someone else. And if you already have my book, buy another. Because what I will say, and this is not a hadith, and it's not a ayah in the Quran, it's a quote that I saw somewhere. And it says, women who do not support other women have a special place in hell. And so I want, hopefully, that when we see other sisters like Dr. Rania with her research, bringing that research to your community, making sure that we're uplifting the work of the Muslim Women's Alliance, the Sister Khadija, and the many sisters of Muslim Women's Alliance, and we see other sisters writing books and doing things that we support those sisters. And I'm talking to the brothers too. Thank you so much to the Muslim Women's Alliance. Sign up to support them, and I'm going to meet you outside.